agree.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Don? Okay. Who wants to talk to us on this? Come forward.
That's right.
Hold on. Let us turn on the sound to that mic. Just a minute. Give us a few seconds.
Deirdre Desjardins with California Water Research. I just wanted to address the council. There were a number of items that came up. I happened to have looked very closely at water use throughout California. One of the things that is not widely known is that urban use was, or use by the State Water Project was 90% of increase in the past decade. And this was because the State Water Project ramped up pumping, the maximum pumping speed of the pumps by about 40% in 2003. It wasn't surprising to me because I know that population growth around the world has impacted water, but this is why it's so critical that we reduce per capita urban water consumption. Metropolitan Water District has said that they are serving, that they are serving a growing number of customers with the same amount of water, but the claim is a little bit misleading in that it's not the same amount of delta water. There was about 500,000 acre feet that they had to give up of Colorado River water to Nevada and Arizona because those states had growing populations and said, we have first claim to that water. So they replaced that water with increased exports from the delta. And I would argue that it's not that the water supply became unreliable, but that we started building housing with water that the system had difficulty delivering without severe impacts. There may be issues currently with the water districts throughout California and what we're going to do in a really wet year because of those increased exports. Similarly, I looked closely at the claims by Metropolitan Water District that they're the most efficient, one of the most efficient water users. And I believe it was true in the 90s, but in looking at their claims of a 20% reduction, they used a baseline of 1980. They counted in the 1990s plumbing code, which is standard throughout California. They counted in tiered water rates. So there are a lot of effects that that are now standard. I do believe there has been widespread adoption of low-flow shower heads and efficient toilets, but there's many other uses that could result in real water savings. So many of them are more expensive, such as more efficient washers. Some of them involves change in landscaping. DWR recently changed their estimate of how much water goes to outdoor landscaping. I believe it went up from about 30% to about 48%. It's very high in inland areas in California, which are growing. So adoption of the model landscape ordinance is very important, and adoption of real goals is critically important. Another issue is that golf courses are switching to well water. So Palm Springs, for example, used to have a consumption per capita of 880 gallons per day. Now it's down to about 150, which is consistent with the rest of the state, but nobody's looking at the fact that all the golf courses just switched to pumping groundwater. In the Coachella Valley, there's 130 golf courses, which are all on wells. And this impacts the drought year water supply. Ultimately, we can't be mining groundwater to irrigate golf courses when we need it to carry over these urban users during critical drought times. And as you all know, there was a very severe drought, prolonged drought in Texas, and we need to prepare for the impact of that kind of issue. Similarly, with respect to Mr. Fiorini's comment, I beg to differ a little bit in that I've looked at the adoption of permanent crops throughout the San Joaquin Valley, and almonds take about 4 acre-feet per acre. That's almost twice what farmers are getting. As near as I can tell, they're making up the difference with groundwater. And so,
Do you have a suggestion of what you'd like us to do, if anything, in addition?
I think I actually agree that having a regulatory policy is probably critical if we're going to increase reliance on the Delta. And unfortunately, the 20 by 2020, there's a real question of what the baseline is. Because if you don't use a baseline of current use, if you set the baseline back to 1980, you can say you've met the 20%, but that's with a fictitious level of use.
Of course. Well,
yeah, and unfortunately, there's been pushback from the urban water agencies. So the council can look at this, and if you'll excuse my referring again to CalFed, but in that record of decision, there was some very detailed policies. Unfortunately, they weren't funded enough, but they estimated, I believe, that you could save 1.9 million acre-feet of water a year. That's currently going to Delta exports.
Okay.
So
thank you very much.
That's my recommendation.
Thank you.